Hello everyone, myself Pancham Singh. I am going to deliver one of the important topic of cryptography and network security is key management. So what is the key management? Basically, key management is a type of management where we are going to transfer the information or data from one person to another person. So key play a very important role for data communication between two parties or two person. So cryptography network security basically divided into two main categories. That is, one is the symmetric key cryptography and second is the asymmetric key cryptography. So in symmetric key cryptography, basically in which we are going to share a common key between the sender and receiver, and sender and receiver both are know the common key, that is the secret key, and sender is sending the data or information to the receiver end. So he or she will encrypt the data by using the common key, that is secret key. So secret key is the common key in the cryptography network security, that is symmetric key. So symmetric key have the common key between the sender and receiver, through which both parties or both people they are know about the common key, and on the basis of that they will encrypt and decrypt the information. Now if I am going to discuss about if n people want to communicate by a single people, then how many keys are requirement here. So if allies want to exchange messages with n people, she needs n different symmetric key. So if allies is a person, yeah, male or female, maybe want to communicate to the n peoples, so definitely there is require of n different symmetric key for communication. If n people need to communicate with each other, a total of n into n minus 1 by 2 key would be needed. If n people want to communicate to one another, then there is a formula that is called n into n minus 1 by 2 key are required. If assuming a single key is needed in both direction, because if you are going to communicate a key, so key is needed for the sender as well as the receiver. So this is the common key in the both direction. So what is the formula you will get? So you will get this is normally referred to as n square problem. So how many problems you can create by using the n key, because n key is the common key between the sender and receiver, and this is used for the both direction. So n square problems you can create. Now the important topic is the distribution of the key is another problem. So if you're going to distribute the key, so key distribution is the very important part in the cryptography network security. So how you will distribute the key, that is the challenging part. So key distribution is another problem. We need an efficient and reliable way to maintain and distribute the secret key. So if you are going to distribute the key, so you are going to give the priority on the distribution on the key, through which we can secure your information between the two parties or two person when they want to communicate to each other. So in symmetric key distribution, in simple way you can say there is a common key between sender and receiver. Sender want to communicate to the receiver, they will use the common key, that is the secret key, and sender will encrypt the information and receiver will decrypt the information to get the correct information. So there is a common key, that is a secret key. And if n people want to communicate to n people, then what is the formula? The formula is n into n minus 1 by 2. If one people want to communicate to n people, then what is the formula? So how many keys are required? So we need n key for communication. So if you are going to share a common key, that is the secret key, between the sender and receiver, there is a two-way communication. So we need how many problems? We need n square problem for the communication. Now what is the key distribution center? So key distribution center is the very important topic in the cryptography network security. If you are going to distribute the key, so how you will distribute the key between the key distribution center? So key distribution center is basically used for the distribution of the key between the allies and Bob. The procedure is start from the first point. Allies send a request to the KDC that she needs a session. So allies want to send a request to the KDC that she needs a session, secret key between herself and Bob. So allies want to communicate to another people like Bob. So first it will create a session between the allies and Bob by using the KDC. Alice uses her secret key with the KDC to authenticate her request and her set to the KDC. So this is the important. Now second point is the KDC informs Bob about Alice's request. KDC informs Bob about Alice's request. So Alice want to communicate to the Bob. So Alice not directly communicate to the Bob. Alice can communicate by the KDC. So KDC is the source where her request will go to the KDC and KDC will permit that request to the Bob, and Bob is getting the request key. Someone is want to communicate with me, then there is a session key, that is a key is generated by the KDC, and after that Bob and Alice can communicate between each other. If Bob agrees and authenticate himself using his secret key with the KDC, a session key is created between them. So this is the third point, is very important, because without the agreement of the Bob, Alice does not want to communicate to the Bob. So third point is very important. So in this figure you can clearly see how Alice want to communicate to the Bob. Alice send a request to the KDC, and that request will be move on to the Bob after the permission of the KDC, and KDC will take the decision when Bob will accept that request. So if Bob that accept that request, then after Alice and Bob both are want to communicate with each other. Now in the second part, you can see that Alice and Bob want to communicate to each other by using the KDC. So KDC is key distribution center. KDC play a intermediate role between the Alice and Bob. So Alice directly not communicate to the Bob, and Bob directly not communicate to Alice. So Alice send a request to the KDC, and she want to communicate to the Bob. So KDC will send request to the Bob, and Bob will accept that request. Then after there is a link between the Alice and Bob through which they can communicate to each other. So in the first point and second point and third point, all 3 points are very important for key distribution center. So key distribution center is basically distributing the key between the two person or two parties when they want to communicate to each other. But they can communicate only on the basis of the request accept and session created between the Alice and Bob. So what is the key management? So key management is basically the set of techniques and procedure supporting the establishment and maintenance of keying relationship between the third party. So if two parties want to communicate between each other, so they can communicate only on the basis of authentication of each other. So if I want to communicate to another people, so I will send the request to another people. If another people receive my request, then after you will get the request between the session between them, then after I can communicate to the second person. So without the authentication, no one can communicate to another one. So authentication is requirement for the communication between two parties. A keying relationship is the state wherein communicating entities share common data to facilitate cryptography techniques. This data may include public or secret key, initialization values, and additional non-secret parameters. So key distribution, if I want to communicate to another one, so firstly we will share the common features, common data in terms of the keying material, in terms of the session key. Then after one person want to communicate to another person. So in simple terms, you can say if one people want to communicate to other people, so he or she can communicate to another people only on the basis of the request accept. If his request will accepted by another people, then you can communicate to another people, otherwise you cannot communicate. So by sharing the information between them on the basis of authentication of the agreement. So what is the key management? Key management in next point, key management encompasses the techniques and procedures supporting. The first point is initialization of the system user within a domain. So first you will initialize the system where you want to communicate. Second point is generation, distribution, and installation of the key material. So if you are going to communicate to other people, so first you will generation is requirement. distribution is requirement, and installation of the key material is also requirement for the communication. So this is the second point. Now is the third point, controlling the use of key material. So if I want to communicate to another people, so definitely the key material which are going to use, that must be controlled. Now third point is update, revocation and destruction of the key material between the peoples, between the agreement. Now last one is the storage, backup, recovery and achievable of the key material. So if I am going to use the key must be stored, so that if I want to check which type of key I have already used in the communication, we can know about that the key which are used by the system. So these are the important key management technique through which we can start communication between two parties. So first, initialization of the system users within a domain. So first you will initialize the system. Second is generation, distribution and installation of key material. Third one is the controlling of the key material. And fourth is update. So update is required, because if I am going to use this key and someone want to use another key, so must be updated by the key material. So update, recovery and destruction of the key material must be required. And last one is the storage is also important, because if I am going to change the key, so definitely that key must be stored in somewhere through which we can know which type of key I have used and which type of key other person has used. So key distribution center is divided into two main categories. The first is the flat multiple KDC. In flat multiple KDC, when the number of people using a KDC increases, the system become unmanageable, then we require the flat multiple KDC. To solve this problem, we divide the communication into domains. So if I am going to solve this problem, for example, Alice want to communicate to Bob, and there is a number of KDC we are going to create. Because why are going to create number of KDC? Because we are going to manage the things which is unmanageable. Each domain has one KDC is desired for the fault tolerance. Alice is in one domain and Bob is another domain. So Alice want to communicate to the Bob, so definitely it will move on the different KDC. So KDC is given in KDC 1 and KDC 2 and similarly KDC n. So if Alice is in one domain and Bob is in another domain, Alice contact her KDC, which turn contact to the KDC in the Bob domain. So Alice contact the first KDC, that is KDC 1, and Bob contact the nearby KDC, that is KDC n in Bob domain. The two KDC can create a secret key. It means that the key is generated between the Alice and Bob with the help of the KDC 1 and KDC n. So KDC 1 and KDC n, they create the secret key between the Alice and Bob, through which Alice can communicate to the Bob and they can share your information. So in flat multiple KDC means we are going to create number of KDC through which we can going to create a secret key between Alice and Bob, and through which we can communicate the data or information. So this type of key management is used when you are going to share the information in the larger size. Then we require the KDC 1 and KDC 2 and so on. Okay. So in this flat multiple KDC, so we are going to manage the KDC through which we can communicate. Alice and Bob want to communicate, they can communicate. Now second important types of key management technique, that is hierarchical multiple KDC. So in hierarchical multiple KDC, the hierarchical multiple KDC has one KDC at the top of the hierarchy. So there is a top of the hierarchy. You can see this is the international level KDC. So international level KDC want to communicate to the national level KDC, and national level KDC can communicate to local KDC, and then after you can move on the Alice. So if Alice want to communicate to the Bob, so Alice cannot directly communicate to the Bob because they are in different countries. So Alice in one country and Bob is another country. So Alice first go to the local KDC. So it will request to the local KDC and it will move to the national level KDC, and the message will move to the international KDC. Then international KDC will communicate to the next country, national level courtesy, and then after local courtesy. After that, Bob will receive the request. So in hierarchical courtesy, or you can say in hierarchical key management, so you are moving from bottom to top, then top to bottom. So your request must be reached to the Bob by the hierarchy in local courtesy, then national courtesy and international courtesy, and after local national courtesy, then local courtesy and Bob. If both requests will be granted between the allies and Bob, and there is a session between the allies and Bob, then after allies can communicate to the Bob by using the hierarchical multiple courtesy. So this type of structure basically used in worldwide, where a person stay in India and want to communicate to the USA person. So someone is there, so he can request to the local level to national level, then international level, then after that local level, that national level to local level, then after that people you can reach. So you cannot directly reach out to that people. We are moving in the hierarchical manner from one level to another level and another level to another level. So they want to communicate, they can communicate. So this is the very important actually key management, key distribution center through which we can communicating from allies to Bob from two different countries. So what is the session key? Session key is a secret key established between the courtesy and member. So if a person want to communicate to another person, so first he will send request to the courtesy, and courtesy will request to that people, and that people will accept that request. Then after there is a session between the allies and Bob, and allies can communicate to Bob by using the session and the request sent by the courtesy. Now the second point is courtesy can help two members establish a temporary key that can be used by the two members for a single session. So if I want to communicate to another people, so first I will send a request to another people, and that request will be sent by the courtesy, and courtesy after that he will listen my request, and there is a session between the me and that people, and that session is a temporary session. And after that, if I am unable to communicate that people, so after some time that session will be expired. Then after I will again send the request to that people for communication. So session symmetric key between two parties use only once. So if I want to communicate to another people, so first I will send the request to the another people, and if that people will accept my request, then there is a session between me and that people. Then after we can communicate. A simple protocol using courtesy. Courtesy basically use the simple protocol. So if I am going to discuss the first point, allies send a plain text message to the courtesy to request a symmetric session key between herself and Bob. So in the first message, if allies want to communicate to the Bob, so first request will move to the courtesy, and courtesy provide the session key, and that session key courtesy request a symmetric session key between herself and Bob, and that after if session will establish between them, then you can start communication. So the courtesy created ticket encryption using Bob's key KB containing the session key. The ticket and the session key are sent to the allies in a message that is in the encrypted form. So you can see here the message like allies and Bob, and there is a session key. So both are revert back to the allies side. Allies send the ticket to the Bob, who decrypt the ticket and obtain the value of the session key. So allies then after revert that message to the Bob, and after that he will open up that message and get the session key, through which they will start communication. So this is the simple protocol in courtesy where you can communicate between two parties, two person. So on the basis of request and accept message, then we can create a session key, and session key will be created. Then after send one person like allies can communicate to the Bob by sharing their secret key. That is session key. A simple protocol using courtesy. The first approach using courtesy is the encrypted. So the first key is the K encrypted with allies courtesy secret key, and second is the encrypted with Bob courtesy secret key. So there are two different key. One is the Alice side, second is the Bob side. So Alice side key is the KA and Bob side key is the KB. Now this symbol show the session key between the Alice and Bob. So this symbol show the session key. And what about the KDC? KDC is the key distribution center. So key distribution center is basically distributing the key between the Alice and Bob by listening the Alice request and granting the Bob request. So in between two parties, like Alice want to communicate to Bob, so Alice first request to the KDC for communication to the Bob, and after that KDC will revert back the Alice Bob session key, Alice key, Bob key and session key to the Alice side, and Alice after that revert to the session key by decrypting that message to the Bob, and after that they establish the communication. Now next is very important a topic in cryptography network security, the Needham Squadron protocol. So Needham Squadron protocol is more similar to the simple protocol, so in which we are using the one different key, that is nonce, that is RA. So Alice send a message to KDC that include her nonce, that is RA. So RA is a temporary key which is used by the Needham Squadron protocol. The KDC send an encrypted message to Alice that includes Alice nonce, session key and encrypted ticket to Bob B that include the session key. So this is the very important. The ticket is encrypted. The ticket is encrypted using Bob's key, and the whole message is encrypted using the Alice key. So little bit different, but it is more secure for data communication between sender and receiver. Now third one is the Alice send the ticket to the Bob. Alice send the ticket to the Bob, and fourth one is the Bob decrypt the ticket and send his challenge RB to Alice encrypted with the session key. So they are executing in the one by one order. So if you are going to understand these points, so you can easily understand by the figure. So in figure you can see here is the K that is encrypted with Alice KDC, that is first key. Second key is used by the Bob. The third key is, that is common key between Alice and Bob, that provide the session key. And next one is the session key between Alice and Bob. This symbol show the Alice and Bob. So Alice want to communicate to the Bob. So Alice cannot communicate directly to the Bob. So Alice will request first KDC. So first request by KDC by Alice key, Bob key and RA, that is nonce. KDC will revert to the Alice side by using the key that is in the form of the ticket for Bob. And in third point, where the request will be received by the Alice and sent to the Bob side by using the session key, that is the session key between Alice and Bob, and Alice key in the form of a ticket, and it will receive to the Bob side. After that, Bob will revert back to the common key, that is KAB, and then after they are share the agreement between the two parties and start communication. So this is the type where you can start communication between the parties. So now in this diagram, this is more similar to the first figure where Alice want to communicate to the Bob. So you can simply by using the request Alice side to the KDC, that request will revert back to the Alice. Again request sent to the Bob, send the common key, and then after start communication. So thank you very much.